turn to Romans chapter 2, verses 1 to 3. Romans chapter 2, verses 1 to 3. Therefore you have no excuse, O man, every one of you who judges. For in passing judgment on another, you condemn yourself, because you, the judge, practice the very same things. We know that the judgment of God rightly falls on those who practice such things. Do you suppose, O man, you who judge these who practice such things and yet do them yourself, that you will escape the judgment of God? The main audience from now on is to the believers, the Jews, or the Christians. Paul explained in chapter 1 of the world of God's wrath and judgment. Paul now points the arrow of judgment to the Jews. The Jews probably thought that the sinners, like the Gentiles, deserved death because they were the chosen people, they thought that they had no sin and they would stand next to God and judge others. Back then, the three main groups were the Jews, John the Baptist, and Jesus. These were the three communities. But now Jesus' community is the largest, although it was the smallest back then. What sin of the Old Testament is similarly repeated in the New Testament? If we think what Paul is pointing out to the Jews is not for me, then we will get nothing out of this message. Let's read verse 1 again. Therefore you have no excuse, O man, every one of you who judges. For in passing judgment on another, you condemn yourself, because you, the judge, practice the very same things. This is also to the Christians, to the Jews of this era. Paul wrote this to the whole church in Rome. Paul speaks of the sinful world of mankind. He says that we have the spiritual arrogance or the intellectual arrogance. With God's word, we judge others. This is spiritual foolishness. You may think you are guaranteed to go to heaven, but you are just a womb Christian. Because you are a womb Christian, you may think that you can go to heaven and you are already saved, but that is not true. Jews think that they will not be judged because they were already under the grace of God's salvation. The Jews believed that God was a merciful God and who would save them. Let's read John chapter 9, verses 35 to 40. John chapter 9, verses 35 to 40, it says, Jesus heard that they had cast him out, and having found him, he said, Do you believe in the Son of Man? He answered, And who is he, sir, that I may believe in him? Jesus said to him, You have seen him, and it is he who is speaking to you. He said, Lord, I believe, and he worshipped him. Jesus said, For judgment I came into this world, that those who do not see may see, and those who see may become blind. Some of the Pharisees near him heard some of these things and said to him, Are we also blind? This is the spiritual humility of the blind man. Jesus is saying that there are those who are blind, and he came to make them see. Paul points out the spiritual arrogance in them. The sin of the Jews is the sin of judging others. We Christians also may have this spiritual arrogance, and we may point out and judge others because you may think you have the greater knowledge. If we criticize others, then the arrow of judgment will also come to us. Let's read Psalms chapter 64, verse 7. Psalms chapter 64, verse 7. But God shoots his arrow at them. They are wounded suddenly. Paul says, if you think you are standing firm, then be careful that you don't fall. We can never be righteous before God unless God clothes us with the garment of Jesus' righteousness. Paul has spiritual humility. He feared he would fall or be disqualified. If a tow truck itself goes into an accident, then how can the tow truck save other cars? We must always have this fear of the Lord and remember that no one is righteous. This is the conclusion. Paul says no one, not the Jews or the Christians, can be justified without the mercy of God. I hope that we can be the ones not to point out the sin of others, but to have humility, spiritual humility, and not spiritual arrogance.